Good morning, everyone. Today I'm going to discuss the second part of orbit. So we will be discussing about the blood vessels in the orbit and the nerves in the orbit. So coming to the blood vessels in the orbit, the major contribution to the blood supply of the orbit is through the ophthalmic artery, and there may be a little bit of additional supply through the infraorbital artery, which is one of the branches of the maxillary artery. So the main supply is through the ophthalmic artery, which is a branch from the internal carotid artery. From the ophthalmic artery, there are different numerous branches which supply the different structures within the orbit, which include the central retinal artery, which is one of the most important branches in the branches of the ophthalmic artery. This central retinal artery comes from the internal carotid artery as soon as the internal carotid artery leaves the cavernous venous sinus. Okay, so the ophthalmic artery is a branch from the internal carotid. The internal carotid traverses through the cavernous venous sinus, and as it exits, probably it immediately gives off uh, the first branch from the in, at the point where it actually exits the at the point where it exits the cavernous venous sinus, it actually gives off the branch, and this accompanies the optic nerve. The ophthalmic artery accompanies the optic nerve, and it enters the orbit through the optic canal just underneath the optic nerve, and it lies slightly below uh, and slightly lateral to the optic nerve. Okay, so then where it actually gives off the central retinal artery. We'll discuss the different individual branches slightly little later, and the other important branches are the ciliary arteries, lacrimal artery, the meningeal branch or the recurrent meningeal artery, the supraorbital artery, posterior and anterior ethmoidal arteries are also branches of the ophthalmic artery. Then the medial palpebral arteries, which are direct branches from the continuation of the ophthalmic artery. Then the supratrochlear artery, the dorsal nasal artery, and other muscular branches. So these are the different branches of the ophthalmic artery which have a supply in the, they do supply the different structures within the orbit, including the eyeball. Okay, so as you can see in this diagram, uh, that's the internal carotid artery. Okay, and this internal carotid artery, as it comes out of the cavernous venous sinus, immediately gives off ophthalmic artery. This ophthalmic artery lies below and lateral to the optic nerve. The optic nerve is shown here. That's the optic nerve. Okay, and the ophthalmic artery lies just lateral to and below the optic nerve. And as it accompanies the optic nerve through this optic canal, it gives off a smaller branch, the first branch to the optic nerve itself, which sometimes enters the optic nerve slightly behind, anywhere from 6.5 millimeters to 15 millimeters behind the its entry into the orbit. Okay, so it gives off this central retinal artery which goes to the retina, and it enters at in the fundus of the eyeball. So there is a small pit through which it enters, and then it ramifies different branches, and it supplies the internal aspect of the eyeball and the retina. Okay, so that is the central retinal artery. This central retinal artery is accompanied by the central retinal vein. Okay, so it is accompanied by the central retinal vein. So central retinal vein lies next to the central retinal artery like this, and this drains into the inferior ophthalmic vein. So now coming to the other branches of the ophthalmic artery. This ophthalmic artery, then what it does is it exits, or it comes out from underneath the optic nerve, then crosses the optic nerve from lateral to medial over the optic nerve, okay, and then continues and then gives off a branch which is called the supraorbital artery. And just before that, at that point where it turns, it also gives the lacrimal artery. Okay, it also gives the lacrimal artery where it crosses the optic nerve. It crosses over the optic nerve, gives the lacrimal artery. Then it also gives the long ciliary arteries. Okay, the long ciliary arteries which go and supply up to the ciliaris muscle or the corneoscleral, up they go up to the corneoscleral junction, okay, and they make a network. They make a network here, a circular anastomotic network around the corneoscleral junction. Okay, so these are the long ciliary arteries, okay, which are also branches from the ophthalmic artery. Then the trunk continues, and the continuation of the ophthalmic artery will become the supraorbital artery. Okay, so the continuation becomes the supraorbital artery, which gives multiple branches. Like the continuation will also give the posterior ethmoidal, the anterior ethmoidal, dorsal nasal, and supratrochlear, continues as the supratrochlear and the medial palpebral arteries. Okay, so all these branches are from the ophthalmic artery. Okay, so again to recapitulate or revise, ophthalmic artery is the first branch from the internal carotid artery as it exits the cavernous venous sinus. Then it accompanies the optic nerve lying underside of it and enters the orbit through the optic canal, and it crosses underneath the optic nerve, goes laterally, and then curves and crosses the optic nerve itself from above. Okay, it crosses the optic nerve from above. Before doing that, it gives off the central retinal artery, which enters the optic nerve and goes and supplies the retina from inside the orbit or inside the eyeball. Then it gives lacrimal artery, which is one of the largest branches of the ophthalmic artery. It also gives the long ciliary arteries, okay, long ciliary arteries, and multiple muscular branches which are labeled here as M. So these are muscular branches to all the extraocular muscles like the superior rectus, middle rectus, medial rectus, inferior rectus, and the lateral rectus, and the superior oblique, and the levator palpebrae superioris. All of those are supplied by the branches of the ophthalmic artery. Then the trunk continues and it gives the supraorbital artery. This supraorbital artery goes up to the eyelid, and it supplies the conjunctiva and the eyelid, and also the eyeball itself, and it will also give branches to the levator palpebrae superioris as well as the superior rectus muscle, and also probably small branches to the uh, superior oblique muscle as well. And then it ascends up into the forehead through a small foramen or a notch, supraorbital notch, or it may become a supraorbital foramen if the bone actually bridges it. So that supraorbital artery goes into the forehead through the supraorbital foramen or supraorbital notch, and then it anastomoses with branches of the superficial temporal artery, okay, and branches of supratrochlear. Okay, so that is about the supraorbital artery. Coming to the lacrimal artery, this large branch goes and supplies the lacrimal gland, okay, giving multiple branches to the lacrimal gland, and then before that, as it goes across the lateral edge of the superior orbital fissure, it gives a meningeal branch or recurrent meningeal artery which goes backwards into the cranial cavity in the middle cranial fossa and anastomoses with the branches of the middle meningeal artery or the accessory meningeal artery to supply the dura mater. Okay. Sometimes the recurrent meningeal artery or the meningeal branch or meningeal artery will be enlarged significantly. When it is enlarged significantly, then what would happen is the entire lacrimal artery is replaced by that meningeal artery, and a significant portion of the blood supply to the orbit is derived from that meningeal artery. Okay, and that would be connected as an anastomotic channel, and the blood supply will be coming from the middle meningeal artery rather than from the ophthalmic artery in that case. Then the lacrimal artery will continue, and it will also give branches called zygomatic arteries, and then it ends by forming the lateral palpebral arteries which supply the lateral aspect of the upper eyelid and the lower eyelids, and these lateral palpebral arteries will go across up to the center of the or middle of the eyelid and anastomose with the medial palpebral arteries, which are also branches from the continuation of the ophthalmic artery. Okay. So now the remaining arteries are these long ciliary and short ciliary or long posterior ciliary arteries and short posterior ciliary arteries. The long posterior ciliary arteries will arise directly from the trunk of the ophthalmic artery, and they reach the horizon, the horizontal meridian of the eyeball, and they go under between the choroid and the sclera and reach almost up to the corneoscleral junction, where they form a circular anastomotic network around the limbus or the corneoscleral junction. From these, there are multiple other smaller 15 to 20 small branches which are called the short posterior ciliary arteries, which enter the posterior inferior and posterior superior quadrants of the eyeball, and they run between the choroid and the sclera and supply the eyeball from all sides, okay, the posterior aspects, and they anastomose with the branches from that radiate backwards from the uh, anastomotic circle at the corneoscleral junction. Okay, so those are the posterior short posterior ciliary and long posterior ciliary arteries. Coming back to the continuation of the trunk, which continues as the supratrochlear artery. This gives the posterior ethmoidal and the anterior ethmoidal arteries, which pass through the anterior and posterior ethmoidal foramen in the medial wall of the orbit, which is formed by the lamina papyracea of the ethmoid bone, and they enter the ethmoidal air sinuses, they supply the ethmoidal air cells, and also they go into the nose to supply the uh, the medial wall as well as the lateral wall of the nose. Then this continues along the medial wall and then gives off a dorsal nasal branch. This dorsal nasal branch will give off a branch to anastomose with the angular artery of the facial artery, angular branch of the facial artery. So this medial canthus, branch to the medial canthus will anastomose with branch from the facial artery. Okay, and the remaining branches, the anterior nasal and the dorsal nasal will also give, or which will run under the under surface of the deep surface of the nasal bone and will supply the nose up to almost the junction of the nasal bone and the superior nasal cartilage. Okay, notch in the frontal notch in the frontal bone or the supraorbital margin, and that will again go and supply the forehead and anastomosis with branches of the supraorbital or the branches from the auriculotemporal or the superficial temporal artery. Okay, and then the medial palpebral arteries will anastomose supply the eyelids, upper eyelids and lower eyelids, and the then anastomose with the lateral palpebral arteries. So that is about the arterial supply. Okay, as you can see here, the anterior ethmoidal artery and posterior ethmoidal artery, they supply the lateral wall, the nasal septum, as well as the, again this is the septum. Okay, and the branches from anterior ethmoidal artery supply the medial wall as well as the lateral wall. Okay, so the lateral wall is here. Lateral wall is also supplied by the branches of the anterior and posterior ethmoidal arteries, or the branch from the ophthalmic arteries. Okay, so that is about the blood supply of the orbit or the arteries present in the orbit. So coming to the venous drainage, majority of the venous drainage is through the superior ophthalmic vein and the inferior ophthalmic vein, which drain most of the blood, and they are connected to two different venous plexuses. The superior ophthalmic vein begins or continues from the supratrochlear and is joined by the supraorbital vein, and that again has connection with the facial vein. Okay, the beginning of the angular vein, which continues down as the facial vein. Okay, the inferior ophthalmic vein is also connected. Okay, and as it comes backwards, it gets connections from the pterygoid venous plexus. As you remember, the pterygoid venous plexus will be connected to the inferior ophthalmic vein. So then, because of that, infections from the pterygoid venous plexus may spread into the cavernous venous sinus, because the inferior ophthalmic vein and the superior ophthalmic vein ultimately drain into the cavernous venous sinus, and they are joined by the central retinal vein as well. Okay, so that is about the venous drainage. Coming to the nerves in the orbit, there are sensory nerves, motor nerves, and autonomic nerves in the orbit. The second cranial nerve is the optic nerve. This optic nerve is basically carrying the visual impulse from the eyeball to the brain, and it is connected to the prosencephalon or the forebrain. So just like the olfactory nerve Olfactory nerve is directly connected to the frontal lobe, and the optic nerve is connected to the occipital lobe. Okay, so the optic nerve is flattened at the optic chiasma. Okay, and it becomes rounded. So you have the optic chiasma like this, where it is flattened, then it goes into the optic canal, where it becomes rounded, and it is joined by the central retinal artery from the ophthalmic artery. Okay, and then this optic nerve is tortuous from the point where it enters the optic canal up to its entry into the eyeball. It is kind of tortuous because to allow the movement of the eyeball within the orbit. Okay, so it is covered by all the three layers of the meninges. The pia mater, arachnoid mater, and dura mater all accompany the optic nerve, and they fuse with the sclera of the eyeball. Okay, this optic nerve enters the eye at the uh, area cribrosa, or there is a sieve-like porous region in the sclera where these nerve fibers from the optic nerve leave the orbit, the eyeball, and form the optic nerve. So it enters there, and it the axons begin at the ganglion layer of the retina. Okay, so that is about the optic nerve, and the optic nerve is related. So here in the center there will be optic nerve. Okay, and it is surrounded in its beginning part by all the muscles and nerves, and as you can see here, so it will come out like this, and here there are nerves. The nasociliary nerve is in the middle, and the other two branches of the frontal branch and the lacrimal branch of the ophthalmic division of trigeminal will also be present just underneath that optic nerve. Okay, then the second important nerve in the orbit is the ophthalmic division of the trigeminal nerve, which will give off lacrimal, frontal, and the nasociliary branches. Okay, so there is lacrimal nerve, the frontal nerve, and the nasociliary nerve, which are all branches, the main three branches of the ophthalmic division of the trigeminal nerve in the orbit. Then the oculomotor nerve is the main motor nerve that supplies the extraocular muscles. It supplies all the extraocular muscles except the superior oblique and the lateral rectus. And it also carries parasympathetic fibers from the Edinger-Westphal nucleus to supply the parasympathetic innervation to the ciliaris muscle and the dilator pupillae muscle. Then you have the trochlear nerve, which is the cranial nerve 4, this is cranial nerve 3, this is cranial nerve 5, this is cranial nerve 2, and trochlear nerve is cranial nerve number 4, and abducens nerve, which is cranial nerve number 6. Okay, so the ophthalmic division is called V1, or the cranial nerve number 5, the trigeminal first division. The maxillary division is called V2, and mandibular division is called the V3. Okay, this is just for your sake to know. So from the maxillary division there are zygomatic nerve and the infraorbital nerves as well, and there are sympathetic fibers which accompany the internal carotid artery and are conveyed along the branches of the ophthalmic division of the trigeminal or the oculomotor or the mainly the nasociliary branches or through along with the arteries. Okay, the divisions of the ophthalmic artery. So that would be the ring of Zinn here. Okay, so that is a common tendinous ring. common tendinous ring, which gives origin to all the extraocular muscles except the inferior oblique, and the important nerves and vessels. So this would be the nasociliary nerve, okay, and this would be the frontal nerve, and this would be the lacrimal nerve. This is the lateral wall, this is the medial wall, and that is the lateral wall, and the lacrimal gland will be here, okay. So as you can see, there is something here, we'll come to that later, that is the ciliary ganglion, which is suspended from the nasociliary nerve, okay. And here you have the infraorbital nerve, and you have the zygomatic nerve as well, okay. This zygomatic nerve and the infraorbital are branches from the maxillary nerve, and as you can see here, this is the zygomaticotemporal branch, and this is the zygomaticofacial branch, and between the zygomaticotemporal and the lacrimal there is a connection, okay. We'll see the importance of that little later. So these are the important nerves that are present within the orbit, okay. So coming to the individual branches, so this is the trigeminal ganglion, okay, in the trigeminal cave. From the ganglion, the trigeminal nerve divides into three divisions. This is ophthalmic division, and this is the maxillary division, and this is the mandibular division, okay. This ophthalmic division carries sensory information or sensory innervation to the structures in the eyeball or the orbit, and also the face and the forehead, upper part of the face and the forehead, okay. The ophthalmic division will carry sensory information from the eye, the eyeball itself, and all the muscles in the eye orbit, and the different structures in the eye orbit, and the eyelids, the upper part of the face and the forehead, okay. So as it enters the orbit, most of the branches enter the orbit through the superior orbital fissure. Some of them inside the ring of common tendinous ring, few branches outside the common tendinous ring. The branch which enters through the ring is the nasociliary branch, and the other two, the frontal and the lacrimal, that's the lacrimal branch, and the frontal branch is this. These two enter outside the common tendinous ring, okay. So these, once it enters and divides into these different branches, nasociliary, frontal and lacrimal, these radiate out and they lie between the muscles. The frontal branch will divide into the supraorbital and supratrochlear branches and lies on the orbital surface, that is the superior surface of the levator palpebrae superioris. It carries sensory information from the these muscles, and then it goes and supplies the upper eyelid, the conjunctiva, okay, and the sclera, and it goes and supplies the forehead, okay. Supratrochlear and supraorbital branches will supply the eyelids, the conjunctiva and the cornea, and they go and supply the forehead. The lacrimal branch will pass through the lacrimal gland, okay. Some fibers are obviously given to the lacrimal gland itself, and this carries some of the sympathetic fibers from the nervus caroticus, okay, to the lacrimal gland, and the parasympathetic fibers which come from the zygomatic nerve, from which is a branch from the facial nerve, that hands off some of the parasympathetic fibers to the lacrimal gland, and it is supplied or supplied to the lacrimal gland via the lacrimal nerve. That is the connection between, that is why the parasympathetic fibers are handed off from the zygomatic nerve to the lacrimal nerve to supply the lacrimal gland. Then the lacrimal nerve will also exit out and it will supply the lateral half of the upper eyelid and the conjunctiva, and will go and supply the area around the temple or around the eye and eyebrows. Okay, and the nasociliary nerve is the important branch, another important branch from the ophthalmic division of the trigeminal, and this nasociliary nerve is actually carries or supplies major portion of the nose as well as the orbital structures. Okay, so it innervates the ethmoidal air sinuses by giving off branches which are posterior ethmoidal and anterior ethmoidal nerves. Okay, and along with this, it also carries the sympathetic fibers that come from the carotid artery, okay, around the carotid artery, and then the internal carotid artery, and some of the fibers will directly join or they go with along with the oculomotor nerve. Okay, the oculomotor nerve will also be coming like this. Okay, as you can see here. So that is the oculomotor nerve. Okay, and you have the nasociliary nerve here, which is from the ophthalmic division. The oculomotor nerve will divide into superior and inferior divisions, and from the inferior divisions there are fibers which go and join a ganglion which is about 1 to 2 millimeters in size, and it is between the optic nerve and the lateral rectus muscle. Okay, the ciliary ganglion is between the lateral rectus and the optic nerve, and it is contributed by the, so as you can see, the ciliary ganglion has sensory, sympathetic as well as motor or parasympathetic roots. The parasympathetic root comes from the oculomotor nerve or the third cranial nerve from the Edinger-Westphal nucleus. Okay, so the trigeminal nerve is coming from the trigeminal ganglion here. Okay, and the other nerves in the eyeball include the trochlear nerve. Okay, so that is the trochlear nerve, which also enters the orbit through the superior orbital fissure, and the trochlear nerve goes under surface of the on the undersurface of the superior oblique muscle, the orbital surface of the superior oblique muscle, and then it supplies the superior oblique, and that is all. Trochlear nerve doesn't have any other innervation. Okay. Then coming to the oculomotor nerve, this oculomotor nerve is the third cranial nerve which emerges from the medial side of the brainstem, anterior aspect of the or the ventral aspect of the brainstem, or the midbrain, to be specific. So it arises from the midbrain and then lies on the lateral wall, making an indentation in the cavernous venous sinus, and accompanies the trochlear nerve and enters the orbit through the superior orbital fissure, and then it divides into a superior division. Okay, the oculomotor nerve will divide into a superior division and an inferior division. The superior division lies underneath the superior rectus, and it gives off a branch which lies between the superior rectus and the levator palpebrae superioris, supplying both of these muscles. Okay. The inferior division will give off multiple branches which lie on the orbital or the ocular surface or the uh, surface which is closer to the eyeball. Okay. They lie on that and they continue and supply the respective muscle, that is the medial rectus, lateral rectus. Okay. So this is from the lateral side, this is the medial side. So there is medial rectus here. So it's up. The inferior division supplies the medial rectus, the inferior rectus, and the inferior oblique muscles. Okay. The superior rectus and the levator palpebrae superioris are supplied by the superior division of the oculomotor nerve, and from the oculomotor nerve, the parasympathetic fibers become the motor or secretomotor route to the ciliary ganglion. Okay. Even though the ciliary ganglion appears to be connected topographically with the nasociliary nerve like this, it actually functionally is connected to the oculomotor, because the parasympathetic fibers which actually synapse in the the ciliary ganglion are coming via the oculomotor nerve from the Edinger-Westphal nucleus, which is in the midbrain. Okay. And only those fibers, the parasympathetic preganglion fibers, will synapse here with large multipolar neurons in this ciliary ganglion, and then they are distributed to the ciliaris muscle, and they are distributed to the ciliaris muscle and the dilator pupillae muscle via the short ciliary nerves. Okay. They are distributed to the ciliaris muscle. 95% of the parasympathetic postganglionic fibers from the ciliary ganglion will go to the ciliaris muscle, which forms the bulk of the muscle in the intraocular muscles, and rest of the 5% will go to the dilator pupillae muscle. Okay. The ciliary ganglion also has the sensory roots and sympathetic roots. The sensory root basically are the sensory fibers that are from the nasociliary nerve, which do not synapse in the ciliary ganglion and they accompany it, but they take sensation from the eyeball, and there are long ciliary nerves which accompany the oculomotor nerve, but they are coming from the nervus caroticus or the internal carotid plexus, and these also are carried along with either sometimes they also go into the ciliary ganglion, but they do not synapse. Okay. So the sympathetic root, they don't synapse, they go straight and go and supply the same internal ocular or intraocular muscles like the ciliaris and constrictor pupillae. Okay. So the sympathetic nerve fibers do not synapse in the ciliary ganglion. The sympathetic fibers can also be transmitted via the long ciliary nerves or via the short ciliary nerves. Okay. So that is about the oculomotor nerve. Finally, the abducens nerve. Abducens nerve also enters the orbit through the superior orbital fissure lateral to the common tendinous ring, and it lies on the ocular surface of the lateral rectus muscle and supplies that muscle. Okay. And this ciliary ganglion lies between the optic nerve medially and the lateral rectus laterally, about 1 centimeter away from the optic canal. 1 centimeter in front of the optic opening of the optic canal here. Okay, so that is about the nerves which enter from behind. There are also nerves which enter the orbit from below, which are the infraorbital nerve and the zygomatic nerves. These also provide some contribution, or they carry sensory supply from the eyeball and the lower eyelids. Particularly the infraorbital nerve carries sensation from the lower eyelid, okay, as it supplies the face and cheek just below the eyeball. Okay, so that completes today's session. Thank you everyone for joining in. Have a nice day.